Hello all, Darren here. Thank you for joining me, lovely to have you. This is a new series on my channel, so if you'd like to see more unexplained and strange disappearances, subscribe and stay tuned for daily uploads. Now then, onto the video. This is the very strange disappearance of Joan Risch. On October 24th, 1961, 31-year-old wife and mother of two, Joan Risch disappeared from her residence in Lincoln, Massachusetts. Unknowingly at the time, this case would end up becoming one of the most well-known and complexing unsolved cases to ever strike the state. Joan was born on May 12, 1930 in Brooklyn, New York. At the time, her full name was Joan Carolyn Bard, but at age 10 in 1940, her family decided to move to New Jersey. Unfortunately, her mother and father passed away in what's considered a suspicious house fire. Subsequently, her aunt and uncle formally adopted her, thus taking their last name, Joan Carolyn Natras, and confirming it by an SSN, or Social Security number. Life continued on as normal, and in 1952, Joan received a degree in English literature from Wilson College, located in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Within 4 years, she met a young man named Martin Risch. The two got married in 1956 and moved to Ridgefield, Connecticut. They had their first child a year later, a girl, Lillian, and Joan proceeded to leave work and become a homemaker instead. In 1959, Joan gave birth once more to a boy, David. While adjusting to the new lifestyle, the happily married couple moved to Lincoln, Massachusetts in April of 1961. Despite the constant moving between states, the transition to Middlesex County went soothingly, and they quickly integrated with the current community. From here, Martin Risch became an executive at Fitchburg Paper Company and frequently went out of town on business trips. Joan, although managing the home, got actively involved with the League of Women Voters, an organization to help allow women to partake in larger roles for public affairs. Along with this, she expressed the ambition to become a teacher and share her love for literature once her children got older. In the early hours on the day of Joan's disappearance, nothing was out of the ordinary or amiss in the slightest. Martin Risch left home earlier than usual to catch an 8 o'clock flight to New York City for business. Joan served breakfast to the children and then asked a nearby neighbor, Barbara Barker, if she wouldn't mind babysitting her 2-year-old son, David, so Joan could run errands in town with Lillian, her daughter. Around 11 o'clock, she was seen arriving back home with her daughter after attending the dentist and shopping for groceries. According to a few locals, both Joan and her 4-year-old daughter seemed to be quite cheerful, albeit tired from the busy morning. Sometime between 11:15 and 11:45, a delivery driver for a dry cleaning service arrived at the residence to pick up several of Martin's suits that he regularly had maintenance. At 12 o'clock, Joan put her 2-year-old son David down for his regular nap in the upstairs room of their home. While David was napping, the neighbor Barbara and her 4-year-old son Douglas paid a visit to converse while Joan's daughter Lillian played with the neighbor's child. This happened on a regular occurrence in their driveways. Shortly after, Barbara went back to her home, but both parents allowed the children to play together. Throughout their playtime, Joan was tending to yard work and using the shears to help keep her garden plants healthy. Afterward, it was near 2 o'clock when she finished. When authorities arrived at the scene to conduct their investigation, many oddities stood out. In the kitchen, a table was discovered overturned, and also noticeable was the phone, generally mounted on the wall, was dismantled and thrown into the wastebasket. This itself was strange as well, because the trash can was typically under the sink, but it was found propped in the middle of the floor. On the counter, an address director was open to a page meant for emergency contacts, but no numbers were recorded. Authorities canvassed the neighborhood and questioned many residents. There were a handful of people who claimed seeing a blue and grey sedan parked in Joan's driveway close to 3 o'clock. Others reported that same vehicle, and the unidentified male driving the car was acting suspicious at a later time, with the possible person of interest getting out of his car in order to cut tree branches from a nearby wooded area and subsequently place them inside the vehicle before leaving. However, the investigators dismissed their statements, saying the car that was seen was more than likely an unmarked police vehicle after their arrival from Barbara's phone call, which happened at 4:30. Despite the valiant effort by witnesses testifying and insisting that the unfamiliar vehicle was there prior to authorities showing up to the home, that particular clue that could possibly have valuable information was never competently pursued, from my knowledge. And all the avenues pursued by investigators eventually lead to an unfortunate dead end, until a reporter for Lincoln, Massachusetts local newspaper, The Fence Viewer, went to the public library to research similar cases related to Joan's disappearance. This particular incident led to a very intriguing piece of new evidence. A few months before Joan Risch vanished, there was a list of 25 books checked out from the library by her. Although she was an avid reader with an immense passion for literature, the books Joan were reading consisted of true crime and mystery, particularly dealing with murders and disappearances. Even more staggering was the fact that a certain book Joan had recently read in September, titled Into Thin Air, had a plot revolving around a woman disappearing from her home, and the only evidence left behind was bloodstains in the house that were smeared with towels, almost an exact replicate of Joan's vanishing not long after. With this new information, more theories began to arise from neighbors and authorities, but sadly it essentially was insignificant in propelling Joan Risch's disappearing forward with positive momentum, regardless of the coincidences from her reading material. Throughout the many acquaintances Joan made during her brief stay in Lincoln, Massachusetts and other areas previously, her personality was different from person to person. Some of her friends described her as an incredibly devoted housewife that loved her family, while others reported her being ambitious and quite unfulfilled in her life as a homemaker. Furthermore, with Joan's troubled childhood with her parents dying in a house fire, rumors started surfacing that she was sexually molested and physically assaulted when she was young. Those rumors could not be confirmed or denied, so using that option as a viable reason for Joan's disappearance had to be put on the back burner. More speculation and gossip started flowing throughout Joan's friends, with some theorizing that due to her fiery ambition to fulfill her happiness and the frustration of being not only a wife but a mother of 2 children, the suspicious car residing in Joan's driveway that was reported by witnesses belonged to a local doctor who tried giving her an abortion in secret so her husband wouldn't find out. Although it is possible, considering that granting a divorce in the 1960s was deemed preposterous unless there was genuine evidence that portrayed abuse, adultery, or other various faults complicating the sacred vows of marriage. Thus, due to the difficulties and a lack of verification that would allow a divorce, Joan merely staged her own disappearance to start anew. Martin Risch and the 2 children continued to move forward in their lives, albeit suffering from the gaping hole of not having answers to the whereabouts of Joan. Lillian and David managed to lead successful lives. Martin, however, adamantly believed his wife was still alive, but suffering from a case of amnesia. He refused to change phone numbers, holding on to hope that Joan might possibly make a phone call. He never remarried, and in 2009 Martin Risch passed away without having any form of closure. Thank you, and please feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it. Until tomorrow, don't forget, stay vigilant and stay safe.